But yes, my scenes are all with Pedro Pascal, with Javi, and I am so pleased and glad that I am playing and acting with him. It's such an amazing gift for an actor. He is a generous human being and actor as well. It's really present, and I have to say, like, all of the actors on this movie are amazing to work with. There is a really good team working on set, and Pedro is just it's just so spontaneous, so real, so honest, and yeah, I've been really lucky, and I think he's doing a really good job. I mean, we know Pedro Pascal probably for all those gangster movies, or he's always like a villain, he's always like a bad guy, and here is actually a lovely piece of cake. Well, I think it was such an amazing gift to work with Nicolas Cage, calling Nicolas Cage. That was the tricky part of the whole movie, that you were calling him Nick, and so you wanted to call Javi Pedro. I mean, like, why I don't have to call you Pedro if I call Nicolas Cage Nicolas Cage? So it was like super freaky. And this is what Nick said as well. It's like, it's weird. You're kind of like feeling that you are outside the scene, but you are inside the scene. It's weird, but really interesting.
Tom and Kevin are just such brilliant creatives. They're just constantly in cahoots, like giggling behind the video village, watching playback, constantly throwing you curveballs, asking you to deliver it in different ways, finding the funny in it, which they don't really need to do often because, like I said, it's all there on the page. They're brilliant creatives and such a great team as well. They really complement each other. And yeah, Kevin, after Tom got COVID, Kevin really picked up the slack and started directing by proxy through Tom, who was zooming in. It was like this weird, crazy Orwellian experience where Tom was like in this iPad, like giving you direction from his bedroom. That was a first for sure. You know, like a lot of people, I idolized Nick and saw all of his movies, so when I finally got to meet him, he most certainly didn't disappoint. He's kind, caring, intelligent, generous, and just such a pro and highly skilled at what he does. I mean, it's just clear when you see him performing and the way he composes himself on set. It's just, he's a master at what, you know, he does in his arena. The one thing which I take from him is his freedom, and also his preparation. Like, a lot of people don't know this, but he preps so hard, probably the hardest out of anybody that I've had the privilege to work with. He's a real, you know, student, a continuous student of film and the filmmaking process. And to see that, you know, through his long and illustrious career, that fire is burning bright as ever, is nothing short of inspiring, man. He's incredible.
Tom and I had worked on a show together, and the show ended, and he said, I have a kernel of an idea, and the premise of like Nick Cage playing Nick Cage. And I was like, as soon as he said it, I remember where I was. We were walking around a lot, and I was like, I'm in. Yes, absolutely, 100%. Let's do it. So as soon as that ended, we basically just started taking walks and hikes and fleshing out the story and the tone. The guy did not drop a single line. He never flubbed a line. We had a table read, you know, a week before the shoot, and he was completely off book, and he had so much dialogue. It was like he he had worked out so much of, you know, what he wanted to do, or he always had a take on the scene.
I think she's very relatable to me, but she's also, like I said, like I think she's very relatable in general. She's young and she has these parents that she doesn't really understand, and they don't really understand her. And it's such a like pinnacle, a crucial age, being 16. It's like, it's so specific, because you're changing a lot, but you've also got you kind of already know who you are. And feel very protective over that. And I think that what I thought was cool was how Nick sort of, you know, openly disapproves of the fact that she's not knowledgeable about all the things that he's knowledgeable about. You know, and I always find that annoying when adults kind of say, you know, you haven't heard of Led Zeppelin, you haven't heard of Van Halen. And it's like, why would I? I don't care. I'm 16. I care about a lot of other stuff. So I think it was nice. She's very sensitive, and I wanted to show, you know, from the script, what read to me was that she has all this anger and hurt from being looked over and neglected by her dad. But at the same time, there's like all this love, and it's ultimately, she just wants him to love her for who she is, instead of being forced to become this like mini Nick Cage. I have loved working with Nick. I was so excited. It was the thing I was the most looking forward to. I was telling everyone, like, I couldn't wait, and completely exceeded my expectations. He's fantastic to work with. He's like super, super caring, patient, very professional, very respectful. And for my first movie as well, it was so rewarding, and it was really helpful to see him work, because he's so on top of everything. He knows exactly what he wants to do. He knows all his lines. He's on set ready to work. He's so patient. He was very patient with me, because there was so much. I needed to ask him a lot of questions. Like I asked him, I remember, I was like, Nick, can I ask you a question? He's like, yes, of course. I said, what's a best boy? And he was like, oh, a best boy, that's a grip. Like some random question, nothing to do with acting. But he really put up with me, and we had like a lot of really nice conversations, I thought, anyway.
And then I read the script, and I thought the first act really terrified me. But by the times we got to act 2 and 3 in the script, I was like, well, he's really taking us on an adventure that is quite exciting. He's going in. I called Tom Gormican in this production the mind, because it really is his fantasy, if you will, culminating from whatever the perception has been in the media, the internet, whatever blips in my life that have occurred, that have gone public as a result of being in the public eye, and some sense of knowledge of my interviews and the things that interested me in this path. And that spoke to me, and it was like a fantasy of Tom Gormican's interpretation of what my life would be like. It's completely fictional. It is not me. There's some elements that are truthful, but it is a fictionalized, surrealistic, abstract, comical account of a week in, and I hate saying my name like this, but Nicolas Cage's life. I also want to offer that I had a great cast. I really enjoyed working with Pedro. You couldn't work with a nicer man. And I thought he brought something quite amusing to the character. Pedro, as Javi, has a very unique sense of humor. He would make jokes about cabbage, lettuce patches in the field in Budapest. And I'm like, is that really your version of comedy? your humor? And it is funny, because no one finds it funny. But his character, I think he was a little method, and he was playing a character that would find that amusing.
Well, Javi is, you know, a particular creation of Tom's and Kevin's, in that I think he's an aspiring artist, and is searching for that, and has been, you know, really shaping his love of cinema and storytelling through Nicolas Cage's performances in his movies. And so it's just a beautiful thing that lives in contrast in such a funny way to what the world thinks he is, when really he's just kind of an average aspiring artist and a psychotic superfan. I would never have imagined that I would ever actually, you know, meet one of my heroes. Whether I liked it or not, I saw his movies more than I saw other people's movies, you know, and so I don't know how to describe what it was like in terms of, you know, being here and having this experience, because, you know, on the first day of shooting, and, you know, saying action, and then I'm in a scene with Nicolas Cage, you know, and I know how sycophantic it sounds, but it's the way it is.
There was no movie without Nicolas Cage being on board, that is for sure. And then, you know, it was about finding the correct Javi, you know, finding, and you know, when we met Pedro Pascal, he came and he said, he hasn't really done much comedy before, but he was like, I'm a huge Nicolas Cage fan. And so there was so much of the Javi character in Pedro that it was sort of undeniable. We had to, and I'm a big fan of his, and the characters that he plays or has played in the past seem to be this sort of macho, like, you know, action-driven characters. They're real, like, men, and seeing him sort of be a giant super fan and sweetly talk about what Nick has meant to him started to really solidify for us exactly who the Javi character would be. First of all, I'll address the mind kind of thing. Nick calls us the mind, like calls me the mind and calls Kevin the penultimate mind, because we tend to analyze and potentially overthink things. And I think what was interesting is so does Nick. And so when we come up, he'd know he was about to engage in like sort of an intellectualization of the scene, which, you know, when you're directing, you want to talk more about how it's feeling, or, you know, or what we can do to make it better. And so he would be smiling when he said that, and he was like, oh God, they want me to say some more words, you know, and he would be thinking about it, and he'd be like, here comes the mind, what are you thinking about, what now? And, you know, what we found was that we were always interested in making it better, and so was Nick, and I think he found a way to sort of have fun with that with both of us.